Donations Management in the Emergency Operations Center. Welcome to a just-in-time training based on the Bay Area Regional Catastrophic Earthquake Donations Management Plan. History has taught us that in times of crisis, communities come together. As an act of solidarity and support, many people choose to make contributions when disaster strikes. As the donations coordinator in the EOC, you are responsible to help manage the coordination of these generous donations. You will work with a team of people inside and outside of the EOC to accomplish your job. You've checked in, received the appropriate vest, and been assigned a workspace. You may not have worked in an EOC before, or maybe you are not familiar with donations management. That is okay. There are resources and people that will help you be successful. Although this time can be stressful, the EOC team will work with you for a smooth response and expedient recovery. During this 20-minute just-in-time training, we will introduce your core responsibilities and how to prioritize objectives within the first 60 days following an event. This just-in-time training is one in a series based on the 8 Bay Area catastrophic earthquake plans. The introductory video includes basic EOC responsibilities and an introduction to the Standardized Emergency Management System, or SEMS.
If you're new to the EOC, one of the best places to get information that's going to allow you to do your function more effectively is to look at the resources that have been given to you, especially a job checklist that details your roles and responsibilities. Talk to your section chief, the people that you work for. They'll help guide you and prioritize your efforts for the most part. And then also, you can also reach out to your local emergency manager, the local Office of Emergency Services staff. They've got a wealth of information, and even if they don't have an immediate answer for you, they know exactly where to turn to.
Whether you are in an EOC during the first, second, or third time period of the disaster response, it may be helpful to refer to the Bay Area Regional Catastrophic Earthquake Donations Management Plan or your Operational Area or Local Government Donations Management Plan as you watch this training. You can also reference California Emergency Function 17 Volunteer and Donations Management Annex for help. California Volunteers is the lead agency for EF17 and can be contacted at www.californiavolunteers.org. This training focuses on the role of a donations coordinator in the EOC. Keep in mind that your role may be slightly different based on your level of government. Stick around to test your knowledge of donations management in an EOC with a quiz at the end of this video. As a donations coordinator in the EOC, you will help broker incoming donations with response, relief, and recovery needs. Your responsibilities include communication and coordination, resource management, information management, and assisting with public information. And always consider people with disabilities and others with access and functional needs as you carry out these responsibilities. You will also need to consider these essential components of the Donations Management Coordinator position. You should immediately work with the PIO to craft public messages requesting monetary donations over in-kind donations. Direct monetary donations per agreements or policies, often to outside agencies. Ensure drop-offs of donations do not hinder the response. Direct useful donations to the response as needed. Work with partner agencies to store and inventory excess donations for future needs.
I would say within seconds of the incident, expect people to want to give. For many people, volunteering will not be an option, especially in a major disaster. That region, people are first going to need to look towards their family, but outside of that region, in the age of Twitter, people will know within seconds that a disaster has occurred, and they are going to want to react and respond by giving.
Communication and coordination refers to your role as the link between government and donations partners. As a donations coordinator in the EOC, you will facilitate the coordination of reception, storage, allocation, and distribution of donations, both in-kind and monetary, in partnership with multiple agencies. In-kind donations include all non-monetary goods and services. First, we will discuss coordination with government agencies. You will interact with your counterparts in other government agencies as appropriate, including field operations, EOCs in local government, operational area and regional levels, the State Operations Center, or SOC, and the Joint Field Office, or JFO, where federal resource coordination occurs. In some situations, you may be the sole donations management representative, but this doesn't mean you will work alone. In some instances, a donations coordination team, or DCT, may be established to assist the donations coordinator. The DCT is a host of partner agencies such as grant-making, philanthropic and non-governmental organizations, or NGOs, as well as the private sector that help with the collection and distribution of monetary and in-kind donations. If your EOC does not have a predetermined DCT, look to community resources to establish one. There may be a donations management unit in your section or branch. You will also work directly with other branch and section staff within your EOC and EOCs at other levels. For example, you may contact the volunteer coordinator in the logistics section to request volunteer resources that would help support a donation center. Don't be afraid to ask your colleagues questions or refer to your EOC staffing chart when you need help. Keep in mind where you sit and who you might communicate with may be different given the EOC that you work in. You will also communicate and coordinate with partners beyond the EOC regarding donations management. Some key partners include California Volunteers for the coordination of monetary donations at the state level, as well as NGOs and private sector businesses for the coordination of in-kind donations.
California Volunteers locates right here at the State Operations Center during a disaster so that we can be the entity that can assist with the coordination of volunteers and donations.
Coordinating with operational areas for monetary donations through the REOC, California Volunteers works at the state level in the SOC. In California, many NGOs are organized into VOADs at the local and state level.
I think there'll be a number of organizations that a donations coordinator would need to be in touch with. There are, in every community, there are what's called a VOAD, a voluntary organization active in disaster. That's a grouping of nonprofit agencies that typically respond in an emergency or disaster.
If there is not a VOAD liaison, contact the volunteer coordinator or the American Red Cross representative in your EOC's care and shelter branch. There is also a category of NGO partners that are nonprofits and businesses specifically geared toward the management of donated goods, such as the Salvation Army, Adventist Community Services Disaster Response, Goodwill, and others. These organizations regularly receive, process, store, and distribute donated goods.
The Salvation Army needs to cooperate and communicate with the EOC because that is where they are trying to figure out the needs within the community, and the Salvation Army can then say, hey, we have this service, we can go out and do mass feeding in that area. It helps us to identify where the need is so that we know where to take our mobile feeding trucks. It helps so that the EOC also knows what services we can provide.
The 9 food banks that serve the Greater Bay Area also play a key role. They distribute donated food to people in need. The deployment of these donated services may be part of your responsibilities. Monetary donations are handled differently than in-kind donations. For the collection of monetary donations, it is ideal for government to coordinate with philanthropic organizations for the management and distribution of these funds. You may coordinate with community foundations, the United Way, various corporate giving programs, and other philanthropic organizations that provide grants and possess technical expertise in collection and disbursement of monetary donations. Ask your EOC supervisor how your jurisdiction handles monetary donations, or if there are established memoranda of understanding related to monetary donations management. And you will also communicate with a variety of businesses in the private sector.
California Resiliency Alliance, the CRA, helps to coordinate how businesses can both, number one, connect into the emergency operations centers during a disaster, and number two, how these businesses can provide resources to help the community recover rapidly, and then third, to help get to them information that they need for both employee safety and business continuity.
If available in your EOC, look to the private sector EOC representatives for help in connecting with private sector partners and associations. Let's review what we learned about communication and coordination. As an EOC donations coordinator, you need to identify and regularly communicate with the designated partners across different levels of government. Stay in contact with California volunteers at the REOC, SOC, or local partners for the coordination of monetary donations. Build a connection with VOADs, NGOs, and other donations partners in and outside of the EOC for the coordination of in-kind donations. And lastly, coordinate with private sector businesses. Resource management involves brokering various types of requests that go both directions. It is likely that in your role, you will make requests to other levels of government and also respond to requests that you receive.
When you're in Field Operations Command, the Emergency Operations Center is sort of your phone a friend, if you will. You need them to be able to give you the information that you don't have. Probably the easiest one is resources, right? Whether it's personnel or stuff.
The types of resources that may be requested could include staff, facilities including staging areas, and transportation for in-kind donations. It is your responsibility to attempt to fulfill requests by seeking out resources in your jurisdiction first. Turn to the logistics section to help guide you to available resources. If resources are not available at your jurisdiction, you may make requests to higher levels of government by completing and submitting an EOC resource request form. Ask your section chief where to access your EOC's resource request form. Be aware that resource requests and other forms may be prepared electronically using a software tool such as Web EOC if available. Resource requests support the coordination of 3 different categories of donations.
During a disaster, there's really 3 categories of donations. Bulk donations come from businesses, whether it be local or businesses from far away, that want to send mass amounts of supplies and resources. These are some of the trucks that you see coming in carrying bottled water, ice, blankets. In-kind donations is the second category. This is generally people within the community that feel badly that something happened to their friends and neighbors, and they may want to donate used blankets, clothes, socks, toothbrushes, those sorts of things. The third category would be financial donations. This is clearly the best help during disaster response because it allows the Emergency Operations Center to prioritize resources for the response effort.
Requests you receive may be for vehicles to move in-kind donations, warehouses to store bulk donations, or to serve as donation reception and distribution sites for donated goods coming into the area. Requests may also include specialized equipment and supplies to address the needs of people with disabilities and other access and functional needs. Excess and unusable material donations often overwhelm donation centers due to media attention after an incident. Unsorted and unmarked goods may need to be taken to a warehouse for sorting. Usable donations may be distributed to local assistance centers or LACs for survivors and affected populations, whereas other donations can be sorted and stored. Unusable or damaged goods must be discarded. You may be asked to identify facilities for sorting and distributing in-kind donated goods. Look to pre-established memoranda of understanding and other donation management partners to identify potential warehouses and facilities to serve as donations reception and distribution sites.
To do a donation center, you have to first find the right size of a building, design what the building needs to look like. You have to bring in the donations, begin to have enough volunteers to begin to sort through all of the donations, making sure that they are actually adequate for the folks that we will be working with and giving those to. It's sorting them, getting them put into areas, and then bringing people in to be able to get it to the survivors of a disaster.
Keep in mind, the need for money continues well into recovery. This is typically long after financial donations have dried up. Warehouses begin to close, but long-term storage may still be needed for continued recovery efforts. And most tasks associated with donations management transition into long-term recovery.
When the cameras go, the news is gone, everything is done. The Salvation Army is still there working with the victims of disasters. We're working with the families that are still displaced. This could be years down the road. We're on some disasters where we're still there 3-4 years down the road.
Let's review what we learned about resource management. As an EOC donations coordinator, you will receive requests from the field and other levels of government regarding solicited and unsolicited donations. You will coordinate the collection and distribution of these donations. For requests you cannot fill, you will use your EOC's specified resource request form. During a disaster, information management is critical. As a donations coordinator, you are responsible to quickly collect and share information with others that will be compiling the following: a situation status report that summarizes the incident, public messages for distribution by the Public Information Officer, or PIO.
Information is vitally important to the role of the donations coordinator. They rely on accurate data to inform all of their communications. This data may include unmet resource needs that require funds, goods and services required per organization, designated reception and distribution sites for donated goods, vouchers, and gift cards, organizations that are accepting monetary donations to support disaster-related services, requests for durable medical equipment.
Let's review the essentials of information management. Collect and track essential information such as needs, quantities, and locations. Data you collect will be used for situation status reports, public information, and resource requests. Media coverage following a disaster often elicits an outpouring of support. Frequently, however, the donations that arrive do not correspond to the needs of the community affected by the disaster.
After some major disasters, you get a lot of something, but it's often more than you need of a something. So right after a disaster, for example, yes, you need blankets. You need to be sure that people are warm, and especially people in shock. But there's only so many blankets you're going to need. And unfortunately, once you put the call out for blankets, those blankets just keep coming. It's very hard to stop the flow.
As an EOC donations coordinator, you are responsible to provide accurate and timely information to the Public Information Officer, or PIO, who is responsible for message delivery to the public. Depending on your EOC, you may also be asked to send this information to the Joint Information Center, or JIC. Here are examples of messages that you may need to provide to the PIO regarding donations management.
Monetary donations are preferred. Donated goods should be limited to items that have been requested, such as bottled water, diapers, and blankets. For more information about making a donation, call 211.
Look for templates for a variety of pre-scripted public messages in the local, operational area, and regional donations management plans. 211, or sometimes another designated number depending on the area, is a toll-free 24-hour call center that connects callers with community resources and provides disaster-related information.
There's a local 211 programs that they'll want to be in contact with to help get messaging out about what's needed and what's not needed in an emergency.
Let's review your role as an EOC donations coordinator in getting information out to the public. Contact the PIO and the JIC to coordinate critical messages. Locate message templates and modify pre-scripted messages as appropriate. Look to your plan's response timeline as a guideline for prioritizing objectives within each disaster response time period. Operational response is focused on the first 60 days following an event, broken into 3 distinct time periods. The first 3 days, or 72 hours, day 4 through 14, and the 6-week span between day 15 and day 60. Priorities within the first 3 days include assessing the situation, establishing a system, and identifying types of donations and donation needs. Core objectives for the first time period include activate the donations management function in the EOC, remembering that in-kind and monetary donations are handled differently. Establish communications with other levels of government, NGOs, and private sector businesses. Gather information about donation needs and activities. Share information with other levels of government and partners. Coordinate with the PIO, JIC, and 211 to share key messages about donations, particularly the preference for monetary over in-kind donations. And begin to organize the coordination of reception, storage, allocation, and distribution of donations. Remember to use the EOC resource request system to support donations management operations. During days 4 through 14, management of resource requests becomes your primary focus, and you will need to prioritize them appropriately. Core objectives for the second time period include broaden communications and continue coordination with government agencies, NGOs, and the private sector. Gather new information about donated items and services that are needed or not needed for the response. Update public messages about changes in donations needs, working with the Public Information Officer and Joint Information Center. Continue to organize the coordination of reception, storage, allocation, and distribution of donations. Address resource requests from other EOC sections, and provide situational awareness in the EOC on available donations. During days 15 to 60, public information remains a strong priority. New priorities such as identifying and tracking unmet needs as well as planning for the transition to long-term recovery begin to surface. Core objectives for the third time period include continue to track the flow of donations, compile data, and update messages for the public working with the Public Information Officer and Joint Information Center. Broadening communications and continue coordination with government agencies, NGOs, and the private sector. Continuing support of distribution systems to increase their efficiency. Helping provide resources for the disposal of unusable donated goods. Continuing to support resource requests. Assisting with long-term recovery efforts and the transition of donations coordination to individual organizations that manage monetary and in-kind donations. Refer to your supervisor in the EOC for a donations coordinator checklist to help you establish appropriate priorities and objectives during your EOC assignment. An example checklist, such as the one shown here, may be found in your plan. Donations coordination is vitally important to Bay Area response efforts following a catastrophic event.
I think the biggest hurdle that a lot of people have when they first come into an EOC is it seems just overwhelming. I mean, if you're on a big disaster, so many people, it looks chaotic. Although it's organized, you don't understand the organization. So I think the biggest thing I can encourage people to do is know there are well-defined roles and responsibilities. Don't be afraid to ask questions. It looks very overwhelming, but you're going to fit in, you're there for a reason, and just try to feel more comfortable in what looks like a very chaotic situation.
As a result of this introductory training, you should take away a better understanding of your role as a donations coordinator in an emergency operations center. Here are some resource references to learn more about how donations management works at various government levels. Note that plans are subject to change. Contact your supervisor for the most current plan. These include the Volunteer and Donations Management Annex to the National Response Framework, Emergency Functions 17 Volunteer and Donations Management Annex, State Emergency Operations Plan, Bay Area Regional Catastrophic Earthquake Donations Management Plan, Operational Area Donations Management Plans. To learn more, visit a local emergency management office or Office of Emergency Services. Let's test your understanding of the role of a donations coordinator in an EOC. What are the most critical tasks for the donations coordinator during the first 3 days of an event? A. Providing resources for the disposal of unusable donated goods. B. Coordinating with PIO/JIC for public messages. C. Implement donations-related technologies. D. All of the above. Although it is critical that accurate information about the types of donations needed and designated drop-off locations are delivered to the public immediately after an event, providing resources and implementing technologies during the first 3 days is essential. When asked to identify facilities to function as donations distribution and reception sites, what written agreement should you look for within the EOC? A. Situation report. B. Resource request form. C. Memorandum of Understanding, MOU. D. Job checklist. It is often the case that a pre-established Memorandum of Understanding has been developed with locations that are suitable for donations reception and distribution sites. What NGO partners might a donations coordinator work with for the management of in-kind donations? A. Salvation Army. B. Second Harvest Food Bank. C. United Way. D. American Red Cross. E. All of the above. All of these organizations, as well as many more in the community, must work together with an EOC to adequately manage the collection and distribution of donations. Which of the following is not a category of donations? A. Temporary housing. B. In-kind bulk. C. In-kind non-bulk. D. Monetary. All donations typically fall into one of 3 categories of donations: bulk donations, often from private sector donors, in-kind goods and services, and monetary donations. Thank you for taking the time to test your knowledge about donations management in the EOC.